Hello everyone, this is Jacob Opio, the producer of The Apex. In this episode, it is another segment of The Disruptor. Jan and Shawaiz discuss the power of storytelling and how it relates to business. Both Jan and Shawaiz break down what exactly storytelling is and why it has lasted for so many years. They discuss how every company has a story and how the story is told through their products and services. As innovators and disruptors of the industry in Canton, Ohio, Jan and Shawaiz talk about how storytelling can be a human-centric approach to providing customers with the best possible experience they can have. From archetypal representations in Disney to hardworking chefs and their own personal stories, this episode is definitely not one to miss. If you want to support us, there are 3 ways to do so. One is to donate to our cause at www.patreon.com/theapexpodcast. Second, visit our merch line that is proudly partnered with Envision Clothing Company at envisionclothingcompany.com. The final one is completely free. All we ask is if you learned something from this episode or know someone that needs to hear our message, share it with them. Please subscribe and hope this pushes you toward your apex.
Hello, beautiful humans of the world. It's your boy Shawaiz. I'm here with my friend Jan.
What up?
And we are the Disruptor podcast, where we talk about unconventional ideas in the world of industry.
Heck yeah, man. Talk about how to disrupt industries, from everything from marketing to data to sales to human-centric design thinking, a whole bunch of different phrases that you guys will know and come to learn and love over the next couple of episodes, I'm sure.
Yes. So why don't we talk about where this idea for the Disruptor came from?
So the Disruptor really kind of was born as a brainchild of myself, Popio, RJ Holiday, and John Kuntz. So John is we finally call him our Yoda. He is a gentleman that was a mentor of ours early on in our Jumpstart career. And Jumpstart, for those of you that are listening that don't know what that is, it's basically an entrepreneurship accelerator here in Ohio, especially like the Northeast region and Northeast Ohio. And John was one of our mentors there, and he actually kind of latched onto the idea of the podcast and everything else that was going on. Eventually, we kind of decided that rather than just a mentor-mentee relationship, it was actually going to be kind of a peer-to-peer. Mm-hmm. And he has this mentality that inside of any industry, no matter what you do, you're either actively disrupting that industry or actively about to get disrupted. So like in the first episode, the example that he gave is if you're standing in a tunnel and you see a light at the end of the tunnel, it's probably the train coming to run you over. Wow. So you need to figure out where that light is and how fast it's moving towards you so that you can figure out how to divert. And that being inside of business and being that forward thinking, that front end of the bell curve is really just about identifying the train further and further down the tracks. So you're not just constantly walking into a tunnel and then getting the crap beat out of you.
Yeah.
You're learning how to avoid the tunnel altogether. And then eventually, hopefully, becoming the train and then disrupting the industries.
I feel like that's what we're doing here with Apex Communications Network. We're that train for a lot of other businesses.
Yeah, we're definitely shaking things up, I think.
Yeah, because Canton, Ohio has a very long history where, businesses are just manufacturing, putting products out there.
Yep.
My personal belief, I've talked to a lot of people about this, you can't just have a business anymore. You can't just make a product and put it on the shelf and hope people are going to buy it.
Right.
It's like you need to have products that are born out of, knowledge of what people need and what people want.
I agree.
And I feel like that's another reason why we're doing this, because we're trying, our motto, educate, advocate, empathize, something like that.
Empathize, educate,
I'm
advocate.
I'm gonna learn this motto one day, guys. I will. I'm gonna get it down.
Empathize, educate, advocate. Yeah,
I got it. Just wrong order.
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough. But
the order is really important. The reason behind the orders.
Because we don't want to just, make businesses uncomfortable. We want
Right.
to educate them and then like be a part of their story.
Right. So like in order to, the way that I say, the reason why we came up with empathize, educate, advocate, right?
Mhm.
And this really kind of relates into our topic today about storytelling.
Right.
The end goal is to be an advocate for our client. The end goal is to be an advocate for a business,
Mhm.
right? But in order to be an advocate, we have to be educated on what that business does,
Right.
inside and out. Like most marketing agencies will come in and they generally are focused on one singular campaign. I've seen a lot of people be very tactic oriented and not so much strategic oriented with businesses. So in order to be an advocate, though, that's the end goal. The end goal is to be an advocate for the business.
Right.
You have to be educated. But in order to be educated on what that business does, you have to be able to empathize with that business. So the definition of empathy is, right, taking a walk in someone else's shoes,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to be able to put yourself in that business owner's mindset. What are their priorities? What are their top selling products? What are their goals? What are they trying to do inside of the digital landscape? Are they even trying to compete in the digital landscape, or are they just a brick and mortar that needs a little bit of help with awareness?
Right.
You have to be able to empathize in order to educate that business properly, in order to be a proper advocate for that business.
Right.
That's why we came up with that 3-tiered system, because we really truly believe that it all starts with empathy. It all starts with putting yourself in the shoes of that business owner and genuinely understanding what their goals are and what worked and what hasn't worked, not just going into there and telling them, hey, we have a plan for you
Yeah.
that, it may work, but it has a way less likelihood of working if you don't work directly with that business owner, because they've been running the business for however long. And although they may not be digitally optimized, they're doing something right if their doors are open.
Yeah.
So you have to learn from the business owner first.
Right. So when we say we're disruptors, it is kind of, I would say, oxymoronic, right? Because we're not trying to shake things up so much that like we're the biggest business in town.
Right.
We're just trying to get businesses to understand how to be more active and be
Yeah.
more present digitally.
Yeah, play a more active role in what they have to offer to the world. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
understand, like today, for example, we just met with a client, and his main concern was like, I know what all of this stuff is. I have no idea how to use it. Like, okay, well, let's just start there.
Yeah.
But for every single business that we work with, it's all different. And they all have a different story. They all come from different backgrounds. They all come from different places, which is why I love this job so much, because, I get to interact with these people across multiple industries, from metal fabrication to coffee shops to international consultants to biotech.
Mhm.
We get to interact with so many different amazing people, and they all have a story to
Right.
tell. And that's my favorite part, is being able to tell the story.
So let's get into this a little bit more, because we do want to get to the storytelling aspect of today's episode. One of the questions I feel like we really need to address is, why is storytelling so why is storytelling so important for businesses?
I would try to take that back to like why storytelling impacts humans to begin with, and then we can kind of take a path forward into why it's important for business.
Yeah.
So storytelling is something that is like anthropologically ingrained in our society. And when I first started Apex with Jake, but this was before RJ was even a part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
We met every Monday for like 7 to 12 hours in the evenings. And we would sit on the balcony. Or at the time I worked for a company that had kind of a clubhouse, and we would sit at that clubhouse, and they had like a pool or a hot tub, and we'd kind of sit in there and brainstorm ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we always talked about is, why do people engage? What makes people interested in what you're talking about? What makes people feel attached to what you've got going on?
Right.
And so we did these case studies. We started reading these case studies, and then just, me and Jake's brains, and you've been around us long enough at this point that it's just, once we latch onto an idea, we're beating the living crap out of it until we understand as much about it as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
And storytelling was really that first one. So it's really cool because written language wasn't around for a long period of time
Absolutely.
I mean, it's only been around a couple of thousand years. And before that, it was all storytelling to the point where like we actually believe like if you were to go to areas that don't really use written words still, their neurochemical structure is different than the human brain now that has written word because they're able to memorize things. Like, you know, the telephone game?
Yeah.
So like nowadays, right, if me and you were to try to do the telephone game with a whole bunch of millennials, by the time it got to person 16, the sentence, I enjoy tacos, you know, might be something completely different at the end. You know, somebody at the end of that train is going to be talking about an iPhone. And I said, I enjoy carnitas tacos at the beginning. But if you go back and you're looking at these places that are still kind of tribal, you know, they still use a lot of storytelling to pass down tradition. Like 95% of that story maintains accuracy within that 16-person group. And there's actually case studies that you could look up on that. So it's super interesting because that means that storytelling is a super, super deeply ingrained part of our brain.
Right.
You know, it's almost like brainstem level that stories really hit. And those parts of our brains are still active. So if you can tell a good story, it really helps people remember. It's like when you go into a restaurant and instead of just getting a plate of pasta, you're reading on the plate the description of the type of noodles, the dough that was used to make it, you know, the types of ingredients that go into the sauce, where that sauce originated from in Italy, you know, all these other types of things. That makes it a full-blown experience. And now that coupled with the taste of the food and the smell and the ambience of the restaurant and everything creates a solid memory in your head that is now a story that you can tell. And you have a really high chance of remembering that because of all the senses that were just engaged. And people, you know, nowadays we're not as developed. You're not developed, but we've developed in a different way because we have access to so much information that we don't have to like remember all of those stories all the time. But there's still a really deep ingrained part of us that reacts to those stories because of how long humans just used stories to pass information along.
Right.
Before written language was even a thing.
Right. No, I think this is a really, really interesting topic because you brought up food, and I've been watching the Chef Show on Netflix.
Okay.
And every episode, like at some point in the episode, you know, the chef talks about a story, or someone who knows the chef says the chef is trying to tell a story. And I was so confused by that. And I'm like, how do you tell a story with food? Like that to me was like very, very confusing. And I like, you know, I didn't get it because when I eat food, I just eat food.
Right.
But as you know, what I caught on to this is these chefs, right? They are trying to take the person who's going to eat their food back to a time in their childhood. So it's like they're trying to bring a sense of nostalgia to that person who's going to eat their food. And I thought, like, you know, that's really crazy because one of the chefs, I can't remember his name, he was talking about how he lost his mom at a very young age. And so when he makes the food, he says, you know, you never really know who's going to walk through the doors of the restaurant. And the reason why I work so hard is because in my head, I'm still hoping that one day it's going to be my mom. And I always thought, wow, like you can, like that type of like, you know, you think about his story and how deep that's, you know, he probably thinks about that every day and it drives him. And this guy's like, he has like a 3 Michelin star restaurant. For those of you who don't know what a Michelin star is, it's like one of the highest honors you can get. And if you get 3 of them, like that basically means like your restaurant is worthy enough for the plane ticket alone. Like that could be the entire vacation is someone living on the other side of the world buying a plane ticket to come to your restaurant and eat your food. That's what that means. Right. And so, you know, this guy he's like lost his mom. He probably went through like a bunch of terrible shit, a bunch of depression. And now he's this amazing, successful chef who's still driven by this need to fill this void,
Right.
basically.
Right.
And I think another reason why we tell stories is because like we view ourselves as characters in a story, and we all want to be a hero. But it's like, what is it that we're trying to combat? And I think in all of us, there's this void that we're trying to fill.
Right. I agree.
And so we listen to the stories of the past. And if you listen to our boy Jordan Peterson, he talks about archetypes, like stories. The reason why they repeat is because they're so similar, but the reason why they're so similar is because they contain these truths that, you know, human life is a struggle. It is about trying to fill this void, and the best way of doing that is really like thinking about what it is that you're trying to fill and just doing it every single day.
Right.
And eventually, you know, it's gonna lead to this path of like success, continuous success. And I think the one of the reasons why stories are so important is because they reiterate this fact, like, yes, your like life is a struggle, but that doesn't mean that it can't also be this beautiful, wonderful thing. And I think that's what businesses, any successful business really tries to do. If you look at Elon Musk, right, he's kind of like the most famous entrepreneur for having a hero complex, right? Because he wants to send people to Mars. He wants to transform Mars so that we can make it a planet that we can live on. He's working with Tesla because he wants to create an electric vehicle that, you know, is gonna disrupt the industry of the automotive industry. So gas powered cars are a thing of the past, right?
Right.
But you look at him, and you know he's got a story too, where he just like in college, he wanted to be a part of things that were going to change the world. So instead of waiting for the opportunity, he's just doing it. Right. And it goes, and that I relate that back to the chef that I was talking about. This guy's he's just doing it every single day. But the drive that's there is the fact that the void really can't be filled, but it's like we're trying to fill it.
Yeah, we're constantly trying to fill it up.
And the more you fill it, the more like opportunities there are for you to be more successful, connect with more people, you know, go outside of your comfort zone, see who else is out there, see what other people's stories are as well.
Right.
I think because human beings are such tribal characters, we're always trying to connect.
Yeah, we want to see ourselves in those stories.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, and you bringing up Elon Musk, like his storyline is very much like the quest, right? Yeah. Like that is a an archetypal storytelling type, right? Is like a quest,
right?
To conquer something or to be the hero of a storyline. And I love those archetypal heroes. Like the hero storylines, I think, are something that's extremely powerful because everybody wants to see themselves as the hero of their own story. Like that's the ultimate goal.
Right.
And it can cause a lot of cognitive dissonance. It can cause a lot of issues mentally and inside a business or whatever else if you don't see yourself as the hero of your own story.
Right.
So like that's the first step. The first step is understanding that like you are the star. You are the star of your own storyline.
Right.
And if you don't believe that, if you don't believe that you're worthy of being the star of your own storyline, it's going to start causing issues from the beginning. I'm going to kind of hit on a little bit of like Peterson and talk about this like a hero's journey.
Right.
Right. Because this is one of my favorite things. Excuse me. Whew. That coffee is giving me some heartburn. I had like 7 cups of espresso this morning at the meeting.
I mean, who hasn't, man?
Right. So the hero's journey, it's really kind of like these acts, right? These steps inside of a process. And really, and if you think of Disney, right? They use these archetypal heroes storylines all the time.
Yeah.
What is this? What is a stereotype with like a Disney hero or a Disney movie? Like what happens in like the first 10 minutes of the movie? Parents die.
Oh, ooh.
Like every time.
Wow.
If you think about it.
Damn.
Anastasia, dead. Parents dead. Little Mermaid, mom dead. Dad's still around. Tarzan, parents died. Right?
Holy
There's some type of
crap.
disruption in the beginning. right? They get separated from something that makes them comfortable.
Yeah, I did not even think about this. Is crazy. This is blowing my mind right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Disney uses these, right? And then that's what makes Disney so powerful. I think all of these storylines, Snow White, right? Parents,
Not there.
not there, right? She's got adopted by 7 dwarves.
Yeah, even Frozen.
Frozen, parents dead.
Holy shit.
You didn't know this?
I didn't know this.
No way, man. I figured out of all this time that you spent.
You know what I know about Disney?
What?
Is like Hansel and Gretel
Yeah.
is like it's a very old story. It's not, it
Yeah,
doesn't
Brothers
originate.
Grimm.
Right.
Mhm.
But it's like,
I think it's Brothers Grimm. If that's not right, audience,
I think it's
correct
right.
me.
Yeah. But it's like the Disney stories are like, they put a happy ending at the end of these very old stories that have like a tragic ending.
Dude, yeah, the Brothers Grimm stories are
Yeah.
dark. They're
That's-
so
yeah.
dark.
But that's what I know about Disney.
Mhm.
I did not realize that most of these stories start with dead parents.
Yeah. Well, it's dead parents or it's some type of conflict, right? Because
Right.
in order to really have a good story, you have to have some type of conflict that gets resolved. Right?
Right.
Like you can't tell a good gripping story without starting it off with some type of dissonance.
Holy shit, Harry Potter
Harry Potter.
and Star Wars.
Yep. Now, dude, it's going to start messing with you. Every single time you look at something, you're going to start thinking about it. This is what you did to me with UX, because now I can't look at a chair without thinking about how many people probably went into designing the ergonomics of that chair. I can't watch an ad on Facebook without thinking, oh, I wonder like who decided to produce it in that methodology. It's a sickness at this point. Like I can't turn it off. So I'm glad that I'm able to like spread this part of the disease to your brain. So now like every time you think about a movie, you're like, whoa. Welcome to the party.
But
So anyway, so like this act 1 is the separation, right? Like you
Okay.
have to have this type of conflict in the beginning. Like you think about Pinocchio, right?
uh-huh.
Separated, has these issues, goes to this island, gets eaten by a whale. Like all of this crazy stuff happens to him, right? There's constantly these ups and downs.
Right.
My favorite example is Hercules.
Okay.
Okay, because I love Hercules because of the mythology and everything else. So Hercules, essentially is dropped onto Earth
Right.
and is separated from Zeus and Hera.
Right.
And grows up with human parents and is constantly trying to figure out why he doesn't fit in. You know,
Mhm.
and then the song, that really kind of brings it up is I can go the distance. You know what I mean? All I really want to do is try to find somewhere that I belong. And he goes on this journey, right? And that's the start. So act 1 is separation. And then they have this kind of descent into like madness, not really madness, but like a descent into like pain, some type of abyss that they're stuck in, right? And Hercules is stuck in this abyss as a teenager. He's like this outlier. He's really derpy. He's really awkward. He's constantly messing things up. Nobody really knows why he fits in. He can't figure out why he doesn't belong. But then at some point it switches and all of a sudden it goes into this act 2. It goes into the second phase where they're starting to discover themselves. And so inside of our brains, and when we're exploring this as this archetypal storyline and we're seeing ourselves as the hero, we can trace back to childhood, to adolescence, to early adulthood, to adulthood. It's why people that are in their 60s will still watch Disney movies, because every single phase of life that you go through, you're relating to a different part of the movie.
Wow.
Your perception of the movie will completely shift depending on what stage of psychological development you're in.
Right.
Dude, I'm like watching your brain melt.
Well, because it
in
makes
front of me
it's
currently.
like it's so much sense, like because it resonates. Like it's
Yeah.
impossible for it to not resonate. Like
Right.
this is the ultimate user experience.
Yeah, and it's impossible for a 10-year-old
Uh-huh.
to interpret what a 60-year-old will be able to interpret out of a movie. But the 60-year-old is going to vibe more with Zeus that's trying to mentor Hercules,
Yeah.
whereas the adolescent is going to vibe more with Hercules trying to find his way in the world.
Timeless.
Timeless, completely timeless.
Wow.
Yeah, because they hit every single one. That's why Disney is so cool. I loved it. I love researching Disney case studies. So the second phase, right, is this
Okay.
this supreme journey of discovery.
Uh-huh.
And now they're finding out their strengths. Hercules all of a sudden like figures out he's a demigod and like gets jacked up on roids to the point where he's just, like Zeus, he's like gaining all these powers and he comes into his own and now he's slaying hydras and doing his thing. And then they encounter some type of other issue, and now that's Meg coming into the picture and Hades coming into the picture, right? Because Hades is wanting to eliminate Hercules for his entire existence.
Right.
And now he has, I forget those two little
his
characters.
minions?
Yeah, the two little minions that follow him around. I forget what the names are.
They were supposed to kill him, but they didn't.
Yeah, but they didn't, and they lied about it. And then all of a sudden Hercules came back, and they're like, shit, boss. Yeah, by the way,
I'm fine. Everything's fine.
We didn't murder him as a baby, just so you know. Because they were trying to get him to drink that bottle, and he didn't drink the entire bottle. Essentially, they were going to try to. He was going to drink this bottle of like.
Is that why he's half mortal?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, because he was a full god at first, but now he's a demigod. But he didn't know that until he came into himself as a story.
Right.
And so he comes into his own, and he's starting to realize all this stuff, and then he becomes this explosive force of power. Right. And so now we have the descent into the abyss, and now we're on the rise. But on the rise up, they have to encounter another obstacle. Like it can't just be an overnight viral video style of a story, right? Because that's not realistic. People can't relate to that.
Right.
Right. So it's like it goes down, and these are really our apex principles, right? Like you hit an apex and then you plateau, you might go down a little bit, but the goal is to chase the next one, not just continue going downwards.
Right.
So you hit that apex, and now you're kind of rising. You're trying to figure out what the next path is. And then act 3 is that mastery, the mastery of that task. And that's really where he encounters conflict with Meg. Meg turns out to be a partner of Hades, that's trying to sway him off of a path. It's a distraction, something that's really trying to pull him away from his end goal. And we can all relate to that.
Right.
And we can all relate to like different distractions in life that are trying to pull us off of what we believe our purpose is. And that's another piece of the archetypal storyline. And so he conquers that distraction. And it turns out that Meg is actually in love with him. And Hades uses Meg to get to Hercules. And I'm pretty sure that he like tosses her soul into this pit, right? This circulating whirlpool of death.
What is essentially the underworld.
Which in the underworld, yeah.
Right.
And so Hercules uses his demigod powers to save Meg's soul. And then one of her tears brings him back to life. So there's this other abyss. But now it's an abyss of a hero. So at the beginning, he put himself in an abyss that he had to try to get out of.
Right.
And now at the end, he is in an abyss because he chose to be a hero. And so it's showing people that, being the hero doesn't always mean massive amounts of success. Sometimes being the hero means putting yourself at risk to save others. Right? But then he saves Meg, and her tears bring him back. And so forming that bond with other people is the true strength. And then he beats the crap out of Hades and does his thing. And now it's like Zeus, Hera, him and Meg, but him and Meg choose to go live on Earth.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the storyline. That's the fourth threshold. That's the final piece is he becomes this master of both sides. He becomes a master of himself and a master of the world around him. And they both become incorporated with each other. And that's the end of the story. So you start from this massive separation between what he believes himself to be capable of and what the storyline is trying to do to him. This descent into madness, this slow rise, facing obstacles on the way up bit by bit, but he's still progressing one foot in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, no matter how many times he gets punched in the face. And then he makes it to the top, encounters something that is so painful at the rise to the top that it's like the woman that he believed that he loved betrays him, but he makes it through it. And their love conquers everything. And then you have the happy ending, which is Disney.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't want to veer off topic, but I just got to hit this. I got to, because it's like in my head. This relates to something I learned as a psych student.
Okay.
There's this concept. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. And basically what it is as you first start out doing anything, you think that you know a lot and that you're kind of a master at it. So basically you assume that your competency is actually higher than it is.
Right.
But then as you delve more, you realize you don't really know as much as you think you do. And so the Dunning-Kruger is basically like a U shape.
Right.
And so you start off kind of high, and then as time goes on, you quickly realize you're kind of not the most competent person in whatever it is that you're trying to do. And at the bottom is this pit of despair.
Right.
And so that's like where depression and maybe like grief happens. But if you engage with it, you slowly rise and rise and rise and rise, where your competency, increases as you encounter more and more obstacles because you're gaining more and more experience.
Right.
So this is like in the beginning, Hercules is like trying. He's like obviously, a very strong guy, right? Like that's basically like a defining characteristic.
Right.
But because of his strength, he can't fit in. But then so he's kind of falling into this pit of despair because he's an outcast.
Right.
Until he realizes that he's actually meant for a greater purpose.
Right.
And so he encounters, the monsters, and after every monster,
he's on that upward slope of enlightenment. Because if I remember Dunning-Kruger correctly, it's like the peak of Mount Stupid down into the valley of despair.
Right.
And then climbing up the slope of enlightenment and then reaching the plateau of sustainability.
Yeah.
If I remember that principle correct.
Yep.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people get stuck at the peak of Mount Stupid. Or they get stuck in the valley of despair, right? Because being at the peak of Mount Stupid is intellectual hubris.
Yeah.
And for those of you that's a really fancy term for basically believing that you know it all.
I feel like another word would be, a simpler word would be naive.
Naive, yeah. Well, naive is a little bit different, I think. Like naive is like you haven't even interacted with the world enough to know any different. Right. I feel like with Dunning and Kruger, the peak of Mount Stupid is a choice. Like you've experienced the world and you refuse to acknowledge it. And then that valley of despair is the world punching you in the mouth because you believe that you know so much that you refuse to acknowledge the fact that you have anything to learn. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, you get blindsided by a train because you've refused to learn anything.
Wow.
Whereas naivety is like, you're just blissfully unaware of what's going on. And then that valley of despair, that climb back up, that slope of enlightenment is I believed that I knew too much. I found out that I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And now I'm slowly starting to rebuild my ego.
Right.
Up this slope. And then I reach a plateau where I'm like, okay, now I'm confident in my abilities, but I'm also aware. I mean, we had this conversation yesterday. Like I am aware of the things that I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm aware that I don't know a lot. And the more that you learn, it's this weird cycle inside of somebody's story, because the more that you learn about your own story and the stories of others, the more you realize you don't know about the world.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can lead to like anxiety-based paralysis because you start to realize how much you don't know.
Right. I feel like this is what happened to me with grad school.
Yeah.
It's like I'm struggling because like I've always been a good writer. I've always, coming from undergrad, I was, I would say I was one of the best students in my major.
Right.
And I was like riding this high, like, holy shit, I'm successful. I graduated college. I'm the first male in my family to do so. Like, right. But then I reached grad school and I'm surrounded by all of these people who know a lot more than I do. They know how to have conversations of like theoretical concepts. And I'm just like, I feel like an infant. I feel, really, dude, I don't,
There's like goo goo gagas there, like talking
I really
about
felt like that.
Theoretical particle physics. And
so I have a story. When I was in grad school.
Perfect. We're telling stories on this episode.
I went to Boston, and there was a conference that was happening. It was a bunch of Army Research Lab scientists coming together and talking about, what the Army wants to do research on, basically in the context of like artificial intelligence. So, I'm a master's student. And by the way, I'm the only master's student. Everyone else already has their PhDs. They've been in the field for like 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, dude, so you're just like drooling at the mouth. Like,
imagine having a week-long headache and feeling like you're the dumbest person alive. Which is basically what infants are, right? Like they don't know anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's how I felt.
But that's a beauty. You know what's really, really cool about not knowing anything?
What's that?
You know what infants have a really, really cool ability to do? You know what neuroplasticity is?
God, I want to embarrass myself as a psych guy.
No, you're good.
Is it like, basically, isn't it like they absorb a lot of information?
Yeah, they can absorb a lot of information extremely quickly.
Yeah.
So I'm cheating. I'm gonna look up the definition so that I'm not blowing smoke up people's butts.
Right.
Okay, so neuroplasticity is the ability of neural networks in the brain to change through growth and reorganization. These changes range from individual neurons making new connections to systematic adjustments like remapping of brain pathways.
Right.
So infants have a very high ability to be neuroplastic. They have the ability to grow new pathways, to form these new things because they're constantly learning.
Right.
Right. So the beautiful thing about being an infant in a situation is that you have the ability to be a sponge and that you have the highest propensity for learning growth. Because if you start at zero, it's a lot easier. It's like in bodybuilding, right? If we were to ask RJ this question, it's a lot easier to get from 22% body fat down to 20% body fat. It's really hard to get from 12% body fat down to 8% body fat.
Yeah.
Right. So you being in that room with all of these knowledgeable people is the biggest advantage you could have ever, because you are the most neuroplastic person in that room because you know the least. So you have the highest potential for growth out of anybody in that room.
That is beautiful.
I love that. I try to tell people that all the time. Like, don't avoid situations that you feel is going to make you feel dumb. Put yourself in there and just say, I'm here to learn. Yeah. Accept the fact that you know a lot less than everybody in the room. But if you are, say, a sprinter and you're constantly running races against high school sprinters and whooping their butts, what is that actually doing for you? Get on the track with some Olympic level sprinters. Even if you finish last every single time, your time at the end of the training of the 6 weeks is still going to be exponentially better than if you were just training with those high school sprinters. Yeah. Because you're going to be pushing yourself harder.
I feel like this is another thing with this stories. Because if you become self-aware, you realize what you succeeded in, right?
Right.
And I feel like once you realize that you're successful, this is where you start to plateau. Because with the apex motto is like, you've reached an apex, let's find another one.
Right.
I feel like if you're successful, once you reach the apex, a lot of people don't go find another one.
No, it's really easy to plateau.
Right.
It's really easy to get comfortable at the top.
Yeah.
And that's where you get disrupted. That's exactly where you get disrupted. So like when you reach that next phase, it's okay to take a week or two and be like, okay, let's figure out where we're at. It's okay to maybe even take a quarter to do that, to analyze data, to say like, okay, hey, we found this new position. Let's figure out where we're at. It's not okay to do that for 5 years.
Yeah.
Because then you are just asking to get kicked in the teeth. And that's why we're so passionate about using data and machine learning and storytelling right now. And one thing that I want to hit on is there's this fear, I think, that like machine learning and artificial intelligence is going to kill creative storytelling. It's going to kill creativity because you're going to have all of these specific insights and everything, and the machines are going to be able to tell the stories and engage us in ways that we're not even going to be able to subconsciously detect and blah, 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 blah. That's a load of hooey. Right? Like that's just BS whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think that I'm actually on the opposite side of that spectrum, right? I think that machine learning and some of this, like the analytics that we have access to are actually enhancing storytelling.
Right.
They're enhancing creativity because creatives like being creative.
Right.
And I know that sounds dumb, but creatives, their favorite part of life is being able to take a cool ass picture, being able to make a really dope video for an ad, being able to write something and look at, like, I love writing so much because I like my dad always used to tell me, find a word that sings. When you're writing a paragraph and something doesn't feel right, get out a thesaurus, get out a dictionary. And if there's that one word in the sentence that just, it's functional,
yeah,
but it's not quite there yet.
Right.
look up some synonyms and find a word that sings to you and put that word in the paragraph, and it can completely change the tone of the paragraph.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful to me. And so what machine learning is allowing us to do, like inside of our data sets, if we're able to pull, say, for example, we're using one of our psychographic data sets that we attach to somebody's website.
Right.
And we're able to go into their Google Analytics and we pull these psychographic segments of all of the people that are interacting with their site and what their personality types are.
Mm-hmm.
What it allows me to do is it allows me to really narrow down what do I want to talk about. And then I get to just focus on writing a story, which is my favorite part. I'm not spending 30 or 60 days of my client's money trying to figure out what story to tell, because I can pull it in 7 minutes. And now I'm skipping all of that process to try to figure out who to tell a story to,
Mm-hmm.
and just focusing on writing the story, focusing on taking the picture, focusing on making the video to engage them, and then getting real-time feedback from them and saying, oh, well, that did really well. Cool. We'll make another one for you guys since you liked it. Or if they don't engage with it, we're like, well, that turd didn't stick to the whiteboard. Let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Right. But it empowers creatives more than anything. The important thing is that you know how to use the data correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the big thing. There's two different camps of machine learning, right? There's research machine learning, and then there's applied machine learning.
Mm-hmm.
And the research machine learning, like our data partners, they're more on the track of, we know how to make an oven, but we have no idea how to bake a cake.
Mm.
We're on the applied machine learning side, where we're getting really, really good at baking cakes with this badass oven. And that's the key. You need both.
Yeah.
And so you can go out there and find data sets, by all means. Go out and find data sets. But unless you have a team like our team, I'm extremely proud of,
Mm-hmm.
because we all bring different creative insights into the picture. Unless you have a team that knows how to put the flour together with the eggs, with the right amount of milk and baking powder and everything else in order to make a cake,
Yeah.
may the odds be ever in your favor. Because there's so much data out there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know how to be able to pull insights from it.
Yeah. No, that's going to be another episode that we're going to have.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that episode being expanded on.
Teaser.
Shameless plug.
But no, that's a really good point you bring up, because one of the things that I've heard a lot being said is how data is this new oil
Yeah.
concept.
Yep.
But it's like no one's going to want to just look at raw data sets. You have to be able to take that, craft a narrative, and then make decisions. I feel, and that's another reason why I think that storytelling is so important for businesses, is because you can't just, the amount of data that is required to gain understanding of anything is just, it's so much.
Right.
Like you can't just have 30,000 data points.
Yeah, no, we're using over 8 billion
Yeah.
data points.
Right. That's how intense it is. Right.
Mhm.
And so
Which is why I just want to focus on baking the cake.
Right. Because from that, you need to be able to extract what's most important. But if you're just saying the data has shown this, which is what researchers do, right?
Right.
But if you can go a step further and say, the data has shown this, we believe that is going to lead to X, Y, and Z things, and that's what we should capitalize on.
Right.
Yeah, you're taking a risk, but you're taking a calculated risk, right? You're using data to inform your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that there's nothing more credible than 8 billion data points, because it's it's coming from so many different people.
Right.
And that's the human-centric approach to making data decisions. It's the data's out there, you've collected it, and now you can use it to inform a decision.
Right.
This is where you gain insights into what the new trends are going to be in business. This is how you can create new trends in business as well. Because at the end of the day, if you're just going to provide a service or make a product, but you're not going to look at who's out there, that's going to use it, and what it is that people actually need. You're just making assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to really have a hard time getting that product onto the shelf.
Right. Right.
And I think another reason why storytelling is so important for business, beyond like providing products and services, is like if you want your end consumer to understand what your business is and why you started it, you know, that you have to have a story. Because one of the things that like, and I've been thinking about this for the past couple of weeks, is business is one of the best things you can do to help people. Like I know we talk about, like people go into the medical fields and mental health fields because they want to help people. But if you essentially look at it, a business is, you know, you're in the helping people industry.
Yeah, that you should be.
Yeah.
I mean, should be your number one priority. Yeah.
So if you can tell the story of like what problem it is that you encountered in your life, how you started a business from that problem, and how you scaled your business so that you could help more and more people, that's going to help engage your audience a lot more.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like I'm going to be giving a speech this coming Monday at the University of Akron to their PR club. Mm-hmm. And the title that we came up with together, me and Julie, their facility advisor, or their faculty advisor, sorry, was a human-centric media model. And we settled on that because I really believe that media needs to be human-centric, not consumer behavior-centric. Like there's a difference. Because
explain that a little bit.
Up until this point, right? Mm-hmm. Consumer behavior has been looked at as stats.
Right.
It's been looked at as metrics, return on investment. You know, you put out a piece of content, and if it doesn't show green arrows, you nix it and you move on to another piece of content that shows green arrows. But a lot of those green arrows are focused on impressions, awareness, engagement. Whereas what we've seen is like just today, I mentioned to a client, you know, we're not going to try to come up with one 60-second ad and then beat the living crap out of it. I want to come up with a series of things that you're going to be able to talk to that is going to empathize with your end consumer and educate them on something and make them feel like they're a part of your story. Mm-hmm. Not a 60-second ad that gets a whole bunch of likes. What's the actual ROI? What is the ROI on that? The ROI on that might be engagement metrics, but is it that forming a relationship with your customer base?
Ooh.
If it's not, you're going to die in the long run. Mm-hmm. You're going to get beat out. Because with Amazon Alexa, with Google Home, with all these voices coming out,
right?
If somebody's in their house and they say, "Hey Alexa," you know, we'll use us for example. Mm-hmm. If they say, "Hey Alexa," you know, who is a branding and marketing consultant in my area, and we're not putting out a whole bunch of content related to educating clients on that stuff, the Amazon algorithm is going to pick somebody else to say back to them. But if you're building that relationship with your end consumer and you're putting out a whole bunch of quality content and you're educating people, talking about you online, people are starting to engage with you and they're really becoming involved in your community. When Alexa says Apex Communications Network is the lead blah, blah, blah inside of your area, we win.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. Businesses win because they formed a relationship. That's the difference between consumer behavior-centric models and a human-centric media model. It's not all about the ROI immediately. It's about the long-term relationship.
Do you think that, you know, there are businesses that are very consumer-centric based and they're looking at these vanity metrics?
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like the majority of businesses that believe that they're acting correctly inside of social media, the standard social media agency model, that's what they do. They look at vanity metrics. They look at SEO. You know, and I'm not saying the SEO isn't important. SEO is extremely important.
Right.
Google is extremely important. Being on Google My Business. But you can still make that a human-centric approach. It's just a fundamental shift that's going to happen. Because most of people's buying decisions now aren't made based off of what they see on your site or what they even see on a competitor's site. For example, me and my little brother, we went to Target to buy a TV, right? Mm-hmm. And I always try to pay attention to the way me and him interact because we're two different generations, technically. I'm millennial, he's Gen Z.
Right.
There's only a 7-year gap, but in that 7 years, so much tech happened that the way that we interact with the world are completely fundamentally different.
Right.
So we're inside a Target looking at TVs, right? And I was trying to decide between two TVs, and Sam was like, all right, well, here, you look up this TV on Google. I'll look up this TV on Google. We'll both read Amazon reviews on both of them, and then we can let people that have already purchased the TVs make decisions for us.
Right.
Right. So I'm like, holy crap. Most people would be like, oh, yeah, obviously you're going to look up reviews on products. But I was like, you know what? We did not have that capability for a long time. People would go into stores and just trust Target. That was a thing. Like whatever brand had the best marketing to get people in the store, that's who you trusted. It was all about product quality and service. Now it's about what stories are people telling about your product or service in the comments. What stories are they telling about the quality of the TV, the picture, the sound quality, the customer service if something went wrong? What stories are that fundamentally shifts the buying decision. So we're in the store, physically in the store, online on our mobile phones, looking at reviews. And then I ended up using the reviews to pick the opposite TV that I was anticipating because the TV that I wanted to purchase only had 4.1 stars, whereas the other one had 4.7. And the 4.1 star reviews were because a statistically high number of people had a screen go out within the first year of purchase.
Damn.
That's a fundamental shift. That's a human-centric approach. That's me looking to another human to tell me a story about a TV they purchased, influencing my buying decision in the physical store.
That's crazy. No, it's really
power of storytelling.
It's insane because reviews have been around for a while, but now we're getting I feel like we're so aware of the fact that we can read reviews on anything,
right?
That it's really forcing companies because with that story, right? The TV that you decided to buy. That company who makes that TV, they win, right?
Right.
But let's say there were no reviews. Let's say there were no such things as reviews. So you couldn't look it up on Google. You couldn't look it up on Amazon to read the reviews. That other company that you didn't buy the TV from, they can't know. There's no way of knowing that a lot of people's screens have cracked.
Right.
And hopefully what that other company is doing is looking at these reviews and they're looking at the fact that a lot of people are saying the screens crack.
Right.
So in essence, the brand that you went with to buy a TV from, they won because you gave them, they make the money off of your purchase, right? But the other company is also winning because they're learning where their weaknesses are.
Right.
And they can
adjust their weakness. Yeah. If you're paying attention to the comments, do you know how many business moves, Shawaiz, that I've made specifically because I put out comments on Facebook and I read 50 comments? I really try to take that Gary Vee approach. That's why I'm constantly on my phone.
Yeah.
I'm just constantly reading comments, gauging our local market.
Right.
I'm not putting out a survey or reading some case study that the county put out or reading, I'm reading my audience.
Yeah.
And seeing what they're saying, what they're talking about, what their concerns are. Because I don't care about what everybody else is doing. I don't.
No.
I genuinely only care about taking care of my customers and taking care of the people that I want to try to raise this tide with. I think that one of the biggest things is this blissful unawareness that people have of the fact that you can do that. That you can engage. And that's the power of personal branding. And we can get into that on a completely separate episode. That's a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
But the power that comes with becoming a thought leader or an influencer inside of your space and how much data you can get back from the human story.
Right.
And the thing is that on the extreme, if there's two companies or Actually, we'll completely change this over, right? We'll switch to a different topic just so people can see how this principle is applied in a bunch of different areas.
Let's do it.
So say you're a company that's trying to hire, you're trying to acquire talent, right? And your executive team at your company does not have LinkedIn profiles, but the executives of a competitive company have LinkedIn profiles that are completely filled out, full of articles, full of input, full of their personality. If you're trying to attract millennial age talent to your organization, first thing that they're going to do is log into LinkedIn and try to get a gauge of what your company's personality type is based off of your company's LinkedIn profiles. Right. If you have your exec team, none of them have LinkedIn profiles, those millennials are going to be very off-put by your company.
Yep.
But if your exec team has really phenomenal personal brands and feel open, they feel inviting, they feel innovative, they feel like they're pushing the industry, you're going to acquire talent all day. You're going to acquire customers all day because they're going to be able to read a story about you, who you are, why you do what you do, how you do what you do. It's a completely different vibe, right? So whether you're trying to buy a TV or you're trying to figure out where you're going to settle in for your place of work, the same principle applies. You're looking for a story.
That's another interesting concept, how our one person's story could be used to attract 10 people because they all have their own story and they're trying to see where it all meshes.
Yeah, and they're trying to see themselves in your story.
Right.
And that's the thing. Like when I always crack the joke that I pursued you for a year, right, to come onto our team. But it's because after that podcast episode that we recorded the first time, I blatantly saw, I was amped. If you go back and listen to that podcast episode, I was like, we're talking about the same things. I just didn't know that we're talking about the same things.
Yeah.
But I saw the vision of how those two storylines could collide and be beneficial. I didn't see an employee. I saw a story that could grow into something just absolutely phenomenal. Right. And that's what I try to, that's the rose colored glasses, I guess, that I wear, is everywhere I look, I see a potential story to tell. And that makes my life extremely fun. Yeah. I wake up every day with this immense amount of gratitude because I get to tell another part of my story. I get to write another page of my story today and help businesses write pages of their books.
I think it's this draw of wanting to be a part of something bigger than yourself.
I agree.
Because I think at the end of the day, another reason why we do what we do, and this is one of the things that I wanted to hit on before we wrap up. We've been talking for quite some time now.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to hit on was this idea of legacy. And it's we do what we do because I'm going to get dark here, but everyone knows they're going to die one day.
Dun, dun, dun.
Right?
Right.
So how do you make yourself immortal? And it reminds me of this scene from, I don't know if you've watched Troy with Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
It's one of the first scene of Achilles, the Brad Pitt's character, is
the massive Grecian war hero.
Yeah. Right. But it's this little boy is sent to get Achilles.
Right.
And then Achilles, he's on his horse, and the little boy looks up to Achilles, and he's like, I've seen the guy that they want you to fight. I wouldn't fight that guy.
Right.
And Brad Pitt's like, that's why no one will remember you.
Oof. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think this is,
it's actually a very key part of my speech when I gave the speech at Walsh. And it's actually my favorite line that I wrote in that speech. It's, be the person that generations from now, your grandchildren will listen to the chronicles of your life as a bedtime story.
Yeah.
I love that line. I have no idea where it came from. It's something that I think it's because I looked up to my grandfather so much that, I plan on telling my grandchildren stories about him.
Yeah.
He's going to be long gone. He'll be dead 20 plus years by the time I have kids, more than likely. His stories are going to continue to impact generations of our family for generations to come.
But I think that like it sounds so weird because it's like we get taught to stay away from danger, right? Like be the type of person who's smart enough to realize that a situation is dangerous, but at the same time, we go out there to find these metaphorical dragons and slay them.
Exactly.
Because we want to be remembered.
Right. And that's something that like my aunt always points out to me as part of like my storyline is that because my mom, being a first generation immigrant, had a very different like style, I guess, of raising us as kids. Because like in Slovakia, I mean, it's just kind of like out the door, and then you're just like gone for the majority of the day, and then you come back, right? And that's how a lot of boomers grow up. That's how a lot of latchkey kids grew up in the side of the Gen X and everything like that. Is come back when the streetlights come on. And one of my biggest fears for these younger generations is that principle is kind of lost. That welcoming of the danger, that welcoming of the unknown, because they've had so much information available to them for so long that the unknown freaks them out. And I've always been the kind of person, my mom has told me this ever since I was a little kid, that anytime there was anything dangerous happening, she would look to her left, look to her right, and I would be sprinting towards whatever was blowing up. And that's been true throughout my life. I mean, I've gotten into scuffles at Blossom because some guy punches some other guy, and I'm sprinting to get into the middle of it to make sure a girl doesn't get hit.
Yeah.
I joined the military. I'm an ICU nurse.
Yep.
I started really analyzing it. Every single decision that I've made in my life has been sprinting towards the unknown. Full on head, like it's probably to the point of ignorance. Like it's almost debilitating because there will be times where like I don't really want to get involved, and then I blink, and all of a sudden I'm in the middle. I can't help it. I'm attracted to that disruption. I'm attracted to that danger because I really do believe, like Troy, right? Like Achilles, that, that's some person that I wouldn't fight. Well, cool. But if I don't fight him, who's going to?
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. If we don't stand up for something, if everybody in the world was like, no, that problem's too big for me to solve.
Yeah.
What happens to innovation? Nothing. Like there's nothing that happened. Thomas Edison wouldn't have invented a light bulb. He would have quit after the first 50 times he failed.
Yeah.
Right? Henry Ford wouldn't have invented vehicles. The Wright brothers would have quit before they figured out how to fly.
Yeah.
All of those people sprinted towards the unknown.
And this reminds me of another movie scene from National Treasure. Like there, Nicolas Cage is there in wherever the Declaration of Independence is kept.
Right.
I don't know where that is. The Library of Congress, I think.
It might be. I think it's on display somewhere down there.
Yeah.
If you guys know, go ahead and comment or write in. Let us know where it's located.
Yeah. And he's looking at this thing and he's reading the Declaration of Independence and the part where like if governments don't respect people's rights, the people have the responsibility to overthrow that government and instill a new government in its place. And he's like, people don't talk like that anymore. And the other guy's like, I have no idea what you just read. And he's like, if you have the responsibility, if you have the capability of doing the right thing, you have the responsibility of doing the right thing.
Amen.
And I think a lot of people live up to that code. And like, that's probably why you find yourself
in those situations all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause my mom always told me that like, I mean, we're a very Catholic family, right? So we're very religious. And regardless of whether you're Catholic, Christian, you're, Muslim, you're Hindu, you're Taoist, you're Taoist, whatever you are. There's the general consensus is that you're born with a specific set of talents that you're equipped with to complete your story.
Yep.
Right. And this will actually be a really good way to kind of wrap everything up. Is that you're born with a specific set of talent and innate abilities. And through nature versus nurture, or whatever else, those talents and those abilities are either accentuated or they shove you down into the abyss because people keep telling you no over and over and over and over and over again throughout your life, right? So you have these talents that you're given. And my parents were always like, it is your responsibility to identify those talents and use every single ounce that you have to better the world around you. Whether that's impacting people, whether it's a business, whether it's whatever else. And so that's why I think I constantly find myself in those situations because I've identified the things that I'm good at. I know the things that I suck at. So I really try to avoid the things that I really suck at. Like I try to beef up my weak points, but that's why we have a team, right?
Yeah.
Because like where I suck, you guys are good and you guys kind of fill in the gaps. But if you refuse to acknowledge the things that you're good at and really focus on honing them in, then you get stuck in this kind of weird place where you don't feel like you have a purpose. That's a really dark place to be, because now you're no longer the hero of your own storyline. But the first thing, and this is what I really wanted to end on, like if we're going to give any piece of practical advice to people to how to figure out how to become the hero of their own storyline, figure out what you're good at and beat the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Until you get to be the expert at it. And it's not going to happen overnight. It may take a long time.
It will take a long time.
It might take years. It may take months. It may take years, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
But if you can identify those things that you're really, really passionate about and really, really good at, and then continually use those on a daily basis to impact people, it may not be monetary compensation that happens, but I guarantee you that the whole law of attraction, good karma, bad karma type of vibes, the energy that you're putting out in the universe will be returned to you tenfold. I can almost guarantee that.
Yep.
Because every single time I've ended up in a shitty situation because of my inability to avoid conflict, 3 months later, a situation happens that I would have never anticipated because I was involved in that conflict specifically. You just have to be willing to jump off the cliff and not really care about what's at the bottom.
Take risks.
Take risks.
Trust yourself.
Yeah, because you have a lot more talent than you think you do. If you're listening to this and you're like, well, Jan, like that's easy for you to say. I hear that all the time.
It's not easy for us to say
all the time. All the time I hear that. It's like, oh, this is easy for you to say. You're like, you got this going on. I'm like, man, you know how many nights I spent up bawling on my balcony wondering if I was actually batshit crazy? Because like the majority of people were telling me that I was insane for like not wanting to be a nurse. Like I already have my nursing and a psych minor and in the military and I'm doing all this other stuff. Like, why are you quitting the hospital? You know how much money you make at the hospital and the benefits that you have at the hospital and family members even, you know, like, what are you doing with your life? Why are you throwing that's what I constantly heard. Why are you throwing everything away?
Yeah.
So it's not easy. None of it's easy, but it's worth it.
Yep.
And that's my message. That's what I'll end on. It's not easy, but it's worth it. So keep trying to write your own story.
And another thing, this will be my piece of advice, I guess, is you are going to fail, but you're not dead.
Welcome it.
Yeah.
Welcome the failure with open arms.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people, like, deeply, they're like, if they fail, it's like dying and they feel like they can't do it again. It's like, you're going to fail. Just keep going.
Over and over. Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you can fail fast, fail hard, learn quick. Put out an idea, fail as quickly as possible so that you can learn. And this is on like the first iteration. Obviously, you don't want to take this. Like if you've been working on an idea for 6 months and you put it out there and it fails within 30 seconds, that's not good. But like if you have an idea, this is why I live stream spontaneously so much. I'll have an idea. I put it out there. I get good audience response. Put something out there again. Get an idea. Put it out there. Audience hates it. Cool. Won't do that again. And then move on.
Yeah.
Right? Fail fast. Fail hard. Learn quick.
Yep.
So it's like this simple synergistic loop that you can just use over and over again, but you have to be really, really be comfortable with failing over and over and over again. That's the only way that you're going to get through enough iterations of something to get to the point where you have something that works well.
And that's okay. That's another thing. Fail, try again, fail again, try better. All that's okay. All of that is okay.
And it's fun. If you can learn to enjoy the journey rather than focusing on the end result, that's where failure becomes fun.
Yeah.
It's a part of the journey. It's all a part of the story. You know, when me and Jake drove down to South Carolina and back to pick up the furniture for the office in 23 and a half hours, we drove for almost 24 hours straight.
Jesus.
Some of our favorite memories from that trip are when like Jake thought that he lost his iPad, but it was really in the back seat. And he was supposed to be my navigator, tell me what exits to get off of. And I accidentally diverted onto the wrong exit, and it took us an extra hour to get back out of Charlotte, North Carolina traffic. I was so pissed at the time, right? Now it's we laugh about it all the time because it's one of our favorite failures from that trip. But in the end, we succeeded and got the furniture back up here. But that's one of those things. It's just like, you failed.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious.
Yeah, it is. I think that was a good wrap up, and thank you for listening, people.
If they want to tune in, we're going to be releasing these episodes every Friday. So this one you guys are going to be hearing after the introductions and everything like that. But who do we have coming up next, Shawaiz?
We have Justin Storch.
Justin Woods?
Justin Woods.
That's Jason.
There's so many
Storch.
J's. There's so many.
Hey, listen,
J's.
trust me, Justin and Jason and John talk about it all the time.
There's Jan, there's Jacob Popio, there's Justin Woods, there's Jason Storch, there's John Coons.
Yep, it's all J's.
All J's.
All J's.
Yes.
James Warnkin.
You hired another J?
Yep. R.J. Holiday. Robert James. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
But all right, everybody. So this has been another episode of The Disruptor on Apex Communications Network. If you want to tune in next week, I believe that the conversation with Justin is going to be centered around human-centric sales approaches and how to interact with people as far as sales go. And that's going to be pretty much the theme throughout the entire Disruptors. How do we keep things human-centric? How do we innovate and disrupt these industries when it comes to these different styles? From marketing and storytelling, which is really going to be my expertise, to sales, which is Justin's realm, to data analytics, which is really Shawaiz and Jason Storch, and then wrapping it up with an actual real-world disruptor with John Coons. So much love, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Peace out.